Should the Miami Dolphins trade superstar wide receiver Tyreek Hill? I'm Connor from the Dolphins Dive, and I'm here to break it all down. Now, first and foremost, let's talk Tyreek Hill, the player. Now, I'm a 22-year-old Dolphins fan who obviously doesn't remember much when I was like 8 years old. So, Tyreek Hill is the most talented player I've ever seen in the aqua and orange. His ability to take over games and make NFL players look like pedestrians is something I haven't seen before from a Dolphins player. So Tyreek Hill is a very talented player. He's done a lot of good things for this organization. He's been in, I believe, an All-Pro, rated first out of the top 100 NFL players, voted by the players. He's done a lot of good, and I think Tyreek was absolutely needed to help develop Tua into the player that he is. I will say, I think Tua has evolved enough to where he doesn't need Tyreek Hill anymore. But, going to continue with Tyreek Hill, the player. This season was obviously up and down for Tyreek, and obviously the entire Dolphins offense with the up and down quarterback play due to the fact that Tua Tagovailoa had sustained multiple injuries. And I think some of that is obviously correlated to the quarterback play, but there were also moments where you saw lackluster effort or drops or him quitting on his team halfway through the last game of the season. And there was also reports coming out that Tyreek Hill was skipping practice or kind of treating practice like it was daycare kind of deal, where he just wasn't really trying all that much. And in an offense that's very imperative on timing and communication, the fact that it was like the 49ers game where he's like, oh, I got to get more reps with Tua. It's like, it's the end of the year. Like, those reps should have already been banked. So my concerns with Tyreek Hill is not the skill set at all. It is more so to do with the character, the off-the-field issues, the distractions, the personal desire to be great and not necessarily playing winning team football. Although, I have to say that with a grain of salt. There are good moments where Tyreek Hill's doing things for his teammates and blocking, but there's also moments where that's not happening. You heard about the chase for 2K where they were just trying to feed him the football. Like, I want a team that just cares about winning. I don't care about any stats. I want wins on the record sheet. So I think you can trade Tyreek Hill and get better as a football team. I think a perfect example of this is what happened with the Buffalo Bills. They traded their star receiver in Stephon Diggs and got better offensively while replacing him with mid-tier players because of how they operated as a unit, where they didn't care who got the rock. They just wanted to win football games, and I think you can do that with this Miami Dolphins offense. So to wrap up the Tyreek portion, I think he's a superstar talent. I get frustrated with his off-the-field issues, as well as the fact that he needs to be motivated by outside things that don't come within himself, it seems like. I think Tua has developed enough to where he can operate an offense without Tyreek, as I think you saw this season, his ability to go through his progressions and find the open receiver, whether it's a running back or a tight end or a fourth receiver. He can spread the ball around. I think Jalen Waddle is a good enough receiver. I know he had a down year, but if you watch the film, it was before he had his big breakout game. I forget which week it was, where everybody's like, what's happening with Jalen Waddle? Like, I watched the film on him, and I'm like, he's that same dude. He was making DBs fall. It's just the ball was already out going to somewhere else. I think Jalen Waddle is good enough to be our wide receiver one in this offense. I think you can go out and replace Tyreek with a different kind of player. But in terms of, I do believe the Dolphins should trade Tyreek Hill. What do I think the ramifications of that are? In terms of cap relief, the Dolphins don't really save any cap space this current football season, but they do obviously save it in the future, saving a lot of money. In terms of compensation that we'd get in return, I think at best the Dolphins get a second-round pick in this year's draft for Tyreek Hill. I doubt it goes to the first. I'd be stoked if it was. I can also see it maybe being a package that is headlined by a third-round pick, but ultimately I see the Dolphins getting a day 2 pick for Tyreek Hill and maybe some throw-ins if they were to go that route. Now, do I see the Dolphins doing this? I'm not sure. I feel like the noise that's been coming out is pretty unclear. I felt like at the end of the season, you could tell the Dolphins were fed up. It seemed like Tyreek wanted to get traded. So who knows if this ultimately ends up happening, but I'm in favor of trading Tyreek Hill. Now into what I think the Dolphins would need to do in a post-Tyreek Hill offense and how they can improve as a football team, as we mentioned. So a perfect example, as I mentioned, was the Buffalo Bills trading Stephon Diggs. They replaced Stephon Diggs with Curtis Samuel and Matt Collins. They drafted Keon Coleman. None of those guys are world beaters by any means. So I think you can kind of take a similar approach with replacing Tyreek Hill. Now, I think you need to go out and get a veteran receiver. Some names that I'm a big fan of: Nick Westbrook-Akina from the Titans, Allen Lazard, a probable cap casualty for the New York Jets. I think you get one of those guys, or a bigger body guy that can help in the run game and be a bigger target in the passing game, which we don't have outside of tight end position. And another way they can go about it, which I'm a big fan of, is drafting tight end Tyler Warren out of Penn State in the first round, and kind of run 2 tight end sets with him and Jonnu, have Jalen, and then you're going to need a second receiver, which could be one of those guys that I mentioned. But ultimately, I would like to see this offense evolve into we, not me football. Focus on winning games. I don't care how they win it. And I think they need to improve their identity into not the explosive, high-flying passing offense to a tough, physical, running football team. Because guess what? Everybody wanted to call out Tua for the dinking and dunking. If you watch football games, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes do a lot of that same things. It's just they also have a good running game that allows them to move down the field pretty consistently, whereas the Dolphins would get themselves into second and third and longs and they'd kill drives. So I think if you pair up the passing offense that we saw this year with the running ability, not to mention a lot of the explosive plays went away due to the coverages we had because we had Tyreek and Waddle. I see this Dolphins offense, if they can improve this running game by getting rid of Tyreek, getting bigger on offense at skill positions and at tight end. Ideally, this offense is a tough, physical running football team that obviously has the quarterback that can get the ball to the open guy and hit the deep shot when the play calls are designed for it. And people want to forget that, because Tua had a down year in terms of deep shots because of the defenses that we faced. Nobody faced more too high coverage than Tua Tagovailoa this year. But if we remember last year when we were seeing more single high coverage, how many times we took the top off of the defense. I remember deep shots hit against the Eagles. At some point, I think it was 2022, but against the Bills, obviously the Commanders, the Cowboys, who were a very good defense last year. It's not like Tua was just doing it against bad defenses. The Jets as well. The Jets are a bad team, but they always had a good defense. Tua can throw a deep ball. Just because he didn't do it this year because he'd be throwing it into double coverage, which wouldn't make sense, doesn't mean he doesn't have it in him. So ultimately, I think you can get better by trading Tyreek Hill. Comment your thoughts down below. Like and subscribe to help the channel grow. And until next time, fins up.